What do most college students dream of in their final year? Well, for some, they want a job, while others chase higher education. But for Elisa Lam, she had other plans. At just 21, she packed her bags and left for a solo trip to California, a journey to find peace and freedom. But her final stop was at the Cecil Hotel, a hotel so soaked in tragedy that even serial killers once called it home. Just days after checking in, Elisa entered an elevator, pressed all the buttons, peeked into the hallway, then hid in the corner as if someone was chasing her. But the interesting thing is that the footage shows no one. And when the video went public, it went viral. Over 100 million people watched. The internet exploded with theories. Some say she was murdered. Others believe it was psychosis. A few whisper about demonic possession. But the truth still locked inside that elevator. This is the story of Elisa Lam, and you're watching SPK Reports. To understand the Elisa Lam mystery, we have to begin with her, not the hotel. Elisa Lam was born on April 30, 1991 in Vancouver, Canada, to immigrant parents from Hong Kong. She was a first generation Canadian. While she was curious, introspective, and often lost in her own world, she studied at the University of British Columbia. Though at the time of her disappearance, she wasn't officially enrolled. Her academic journey has been inconsistent, interrupted by her ongoing mental struggles. Elisa was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, something she never tried to hide. Elisa poured her soul into her Tumblr blog Nova Nova, where she posted everything from book quotes and fashion snapshots to her deepest and most vulnerable thoughts. And those thoughts were sometimes funny, sometimes poetic, and most often they were painful and heartbreaking. In one post, she writes saying, "You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life." In another, she writes, "I have no idea what I'm doing with my life, and everyone is making it worse by asking me." Elisa battled loneliness, but she never pretended. She talked openly about feeling lost, and despite everything, she kept planning, hoping, and dreaming. In early 2013, Elisa decided to take a solo trip through California. She wanted to explore the West Coast, San Diego, Los Angeles, and the Disney. But her parents were worried. Elisa argued with them. They both came onto one condition and agreed that she had to call them every single day. At first, everything was going well. She visited the San Diego Zoo, posted happy photos, sent cheerful updates. Then she arrived in Los Angeles and checked into the Cecil Hotel, unaware of its infamous past. A final phone call to her parents came on January 31st. After that, it was all silence. What began as a journey towards freedom ended in one of the internet's darkest, most enduring mysteries. The Cecil Hotel isn't just a building, it's a character in this story, and the character is so soaked in tragedy and blood. The hotel was originally built in 1924 as a grand hotel for the businessmen and tourists. The Cecil started its decline during the American Great Depression. What was once elegant and buzzing with promise slowly deteriorated into something far more sinister, as the streets around it, now known as the Skid Row, which are now turned to poverty, addiction, and crime. And the hotel has absorbed that energy. It has stopped being a destination and it has become a trap. For over the decades, the hotel earned its brutal nicknames such as the Suicide Hotel, the Hotel Death, and these weren't just rumors, they were earned. The horror stories are endless. Here are some of them. At least 16 recorded suicides, countless drug overdose, guests who died and weren't found for weeks. One woman gave birth in the building and threw her newborn out of the window. Now, this itself tells us how horrifying the hotel was. And then there are monsters who checked in and never checked out. In 1985, a well-known night stalker, Richard Ramirez, was staying on the 14th floor during his reign of terror. He would come back covered in blood and no one said a word. Years later, an Australian journalist and convicted serial killer, Jack Unterweger, also booked a room at the same hotel while pretending to be a crime writer, but he was actually committing murders using the hotel bedsheet to strangle its victims. The hotel has now become a magnet for the broken and for the disturbed, but the business never stopped. Instead of closing its door, the Cecil has converted rooms into a low-income housing. The police has stopped the investigation, the media stopped asking questions, and the building just kept and absorbing the darkness. People just did not disappear physically. They have vanished into a system, into the silence and into the void. And then comes 2013. Elisa Lam, who was young, hopeful and unaware, has checked into something dark. When Elisa entered into an hotel, she was first assigned to a shared room. But after her roommates complained of her unusual behavior, she had moved to a private room, the room number 506, a room tucked into one of the hotel's quiet and most faded corners. A room with the memory of death. Elisa didn't know she was walking into one of the most cursed buildings in the United States of America. The last place she would ever be seen alive. A viral elevator video, a vanishing act, and hotel that seems to swallow people. The Cecil Hotel isn't just haunted by ghosts, it was haunted by truth. That's so disturbing for most to accept. And then Elisa became its most haunting echo. The last time Elisa Lam was seen alive was through a silent and a blurry surveillance tape. There was no witness and no voice, just a flickering camera in an elevator and a young girl who is behaving like she has been chased by someone no one else could see. The footage was captured on February 1st, 2007 inside the Cecil Hotel elevator. When Elisa steps, she was very calm and she was alone. She presses several buttons, not just for one floor, but for nearly all of them. She stands in the corner and waits. The doors don't close. Few seconds passes. She peeks her head outside, looks both ways, suddenly steps back in very fast like someone was following her, but the hallway was empty as per the surveillance tape. Then it gets even stranger. Elisa starts stepping in and out of the elevator. She moves as if trying to maneuver something just out of frame. She presses herself flat against the wall. She jerks, hesitates, her arms wave in an unnatural pattern, almost like she's feeling for something invisible or trying to hide something off. At one point, she begins gesturing wildly with her hands. Some say it looks like she's speaking to someone, while others say she looks like she's possessed. Then, just like that, she walks out of frame. The elevator doors close behind her, and Elisa Lam disappears. That's the final moment of her alive. The LAPD released the footage on February 14th, hoping the public could help. But instead of answers, it triggered an internet wildfire because many claim the video was edited, the timestamp was glitched, several frames were possibly removed. Others noticed how long could elevator doors stay open. Some say they were shadows, while others say they have seen foot, just barely visible off screen. But the mental health expert believed that Elisa might have been experiencing a manic or a psychotic episode, whereas the paranormal believers instead that she is playing something called the elevator game, a supposed ritual to another dimension. But regardless of what you believe, the feeling you get from watching it is undeniable. Something about the footage just feels cursed. But this wasn't just a surveillance video. This was a digital ghost story captured in a real time, the kind you can't unuse it. And as millions and millions of people watched the wave at something invisible, the world whispered the same question. What was Elisa seeing that we couldn't? After the elevator footage, Elisa Lam was never seen again. She was officially declared as a missing person on February 1st, 2013, the very same day when she was last captured on camera. At first, the case did not attract much attention. It was just another young woman who hadn't called home. But as hours turned into days and days into weeks, panic started to set in. The hotel management started to check Elisa's room. When they checked the room, they found her belongings, her laptop, her clothes, her wallet, even the book she was reading. But the only thing was missing was Elisa. Hotel staff said they hadn't seen her. She had left no checkout records, no calls, no witness. It was as if she had been just vanished. Her parents flew in from Canada. The LAPD launched a full scale search. They brought in the dog, searched every floor, every room, including the rooftop, but they could find nothing. And also, there were no signs of forced entry, no struggle, no blood, hence no Elisa. And after a couple of days, the guests in the Cecil Hotel started to complain. But the complaint was not about Elisa, the complaint was about water. The water pressure is low, the water tastes funny, see, it smells bad, the color is dark. One of the guests of the Cecil Hotel told to reporters the tap water came out black for first few seconds, then it turned normal. Everyone in the hotel thought it's just an LA plumbing problem. But on February 19th, 19 days after Elisa vanished, a maintenance worker named Santiago Lopro went to the rooftop water tanks to check the filtration. When he climbed the stairs, crossed the secure dome, what he saw he would never forget in life. He saw Elisa Lam floating face up. She was naked and she was dead. Her body had been inside the tank, decomposing for weeks. The same tank that supplied water to the guest bathroom, showers, and even drinking water. When the news broke, the horror spread fast. What had been a mysterious disappearance had just turned into a nightmare. Now the question wasn't just where is Elisa Lam? The question is how did Elisa get there? Finding Eliza was only half the horror. The bigger question was, how did she get there? Because here's what most people don't understand. The roof of the Cecil Hotel is not somewhere you just wander into. The access to the roof was locked all the times, and there was a heavy metal door connected to an alarm system. An ear-piercing siren would go off all across the entire hotel. But during Eliza's disappearance, there were no alarm triggered. Some people suggested she might have taken the fire escape, which is technically possible. If she could climb out of a window, crossed over a narrow sledge and scaled and opened a ladder several stories up without slipping or being seen, which is not possible. But that brings us to the tank itself. Elisa's body was found inside the farthest tank. The tank was over 8 feet tall with no fixed ladder. To reach the top, she would have to climb on a narrow platform, then somehow lift herself up and over the rim. Now just picture this for a minute. She was alone. She had no equipment, no one to help. And she opens a 200-pound metal hatch and jumps into the pitch black icy water. Not possible, right? But here's what still baffled the investigators. The hatch was found closed. It was heavy, too heavy to pull shut from inside, which raises the possibility of did someone close it after she went in. But the LAPD police claim there was no evidence of foul play. There were no bruises on her body, no cuts, or no DNA. They called it as an accidental drowning, likely triggered by a mental health crisis. But the skeptics are not ready for buying it. How did she get through all the security? Why was there no footage of her after the elevator? Why weren't the sniffer dogs able to pick up the trail on the rooftop? Too many details didn't add up. Too many questions were ignored. And with every answer the authorities gave, the public had only one more question. Because Elisa did not just defy gravity, she defied logic. And the rooftop became a riddle that no one could solve. Once Elisa's body was discovered and the elevator footage went viral, the world did what it always does with a mystery. It tried to explain. And that's when the theories began. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Everyone had a version of truth, but none of them felt complete. Here are the few theories. The first theory is a mental health crisis. Elisa was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. Her own Tumblr post revealed her struggles, her emotions, ups and downs. Some experts believe that during a manic or psychotic episode, she may have become paranoid, believed that someone was following her, and fled to a rooftop in a disoriented state. She may have entered the tank to hide, but she might have misunderstood the danger. She may have been having a full psychological break. But here's the issue. She was on the prescribed medication. Her toxology report showed traces of her medications, but not enough in her system to indicate fully compliance. Did she skipping doses? Because when she does skip those medications, that trigger hallucinations. Or was it just a simple theory to make a story go up? We don't know. And then comes the second theory, the paranormal. Others turn to something darker. The Cecil Hotel had already earned a reputation not just for the crime, but for being cursed, from serial killers to suicide, and now a viral death with no logical explanation. Some viewers noticed the elevator buttons didn't work normally, and the doors used to stay open too long. Her hand movements looked unnatural, almost like she was interacting with something invisible. Then came the most bizarre connection of all. Elisa's death happened just before her tuberculosis outbreak in a skid's row. The test used to detect the disease. It was called Lam Elisa. Coincidence, right? Or some people believed it as a cover-up. Online communities exploded. Some believed she was a part of a CIA experiment, while others believed she was just a victim of demonic possession. And one theory even claimed she was performing the elevator game, a dangerous Korean ritual meant to transport you into another dimension. Was Elisa caught between the worlds, or just caught in a strong of an online madness? Only Elisa could answer that. And the other theory was foul play. Many refused to believe that she got there alone. The rooftop was no doubt a difficult place to access. The tank was nearly impossible to enter. Close it from inside by yourself. It's nearly impossible. The autopsy showed no signs of trauma, but also no real explanation. Some believe someone followed her, a hotel guest, a staff member, someone who knew that hotel's blind spot and access point. Theories emerged about missing security footage, deleted time code, eyewitnesses who never came forward. Some even suggested Elisa knew something. Some even suggested that Elisa knew something which she wasn't supposed to know. And that night, they made sure she would never speak again. Each theory was more haunting than the last. It might be a mental illness, paranormal forces, a well-executed cover-up. But every theory shares one thing. They all have some holes. No matter how far you dig, you always end up at the same place. A girl walks into an elevator she's never seen again. After all the theories came the official word. On February 21st, 2013, the LA Country Coroner released the result of Elisa Lam's autopsy. The cause of death, according to the reports, was accidental drowning. There were no evidence of sexual assault, no signs of physical trauma, no drugs or alcohol in her system, no bruises or no defensive wounds. She was just drowned and the case was closed, right? No, not even closed, because the reports left out more than it revealed. Elisa's body was naked. and her clothes were found at the bottom of the tank, coated in a sand like particle. The official timeline between death and the discovery was over 19 days, yet no one smelled or noticed anything until the hotel guests began drinking the water. Her body had no bloating or no decomposition signs. Her body had no bloating or decomposition sign being such a long time in water. Medical experts still argue about this today. What was even confusing was a toxicology report showed she had some of a bipolar medication in her system, but not the full doses she had been prescribed, which led the coroner to suggest Elisa might have stopped taking her meds and had a mental episode that drowned herself. But here's the problem. The theory only works if you ignore all the logistical impossibilities. How did Elisa had an access to the rooftop? How did she climb the tank without a tool? And how did she close a 20 kg lid behind her after jumping in? And the biggest red flag in this case was the delay. The report was initially marked as incomplete. It took 4 extra months to finalize. And when it was finally released, there were missing pages, redacted witness statements, and inconsistent detail. For many, it did not feel like it was a closure. It felt like a conclusion written to calm headlines, to quiet the outrage, and to make a story disappear just like Elisa did. But the world wasn't buying it, because when you strip away the excuses and explanation, all you're left with is a girl, a tank, and a truth that doesn't want to be found. Elisa Lam was 21 years old. She was a daughter, a student, and a writer. Elisa loved poetry, fashion, and quiet bookstores. She had a voice that spilled across her blog in raw and vulnerable honesty. She was more than that viral video, more than a headline, more than a girl in an elevator. But the internet didn't just let her rest. After her death, Elisa had become an icon of digital obsession. Millions of people watched and rewatched the elevator footage, trying to decode what they weren't meant to understand. Her Tumblr account Nova became a memorial, which is frozen in time. And still today people visit it, still comment, as if waiting for her post one last thought, one final goodbye. Elisa didn't just disappear in a tank. She disappeared into a system that failed people like her every day. A society that still doesn't know how to talk about mental health. A hotel that keeps following its stories. And somewhere in all of this, her voice still echoes. Not in the elevator, not in the tank, but in the millions who still feel lost, who still wonder if someone would notice, if they would disappear. Because the story of Elisa Lam was never just about how she died. It was all about how no one saw her drowning until she was already gone. And now the Cecil Hotel has been rebranded, the name changed, the lobby painted. But some stories can't be buried under a fresh paint. Elisa Lam walked into the hotel and never walked out. Her case remains closed now. But the questions remain open. Was it a mental break? Was it a system failure? Or was it a cover-up? Or was it even something darker? Whatever believe, one thing is certain. She did not deserve to vanish. And she did not deserve to be forgotten. I am Sai, and this is SPK Reports, unmasking crime, one story at a time.